Uncon a new character. No, level 15, mate. Level 15. I'm great at this. Am I going to try Midnight? So, no, unless they pay me to. I have absolutely no interest in playing Midnight whatsoever. But if you see me playing Midnight, I can guarantee you I've been paid. Like, I wouldn't even lie to you about it. I would be like, okay, welcome to this sponsored stream of Midnight, which is going to last exactly as long as I'm paid to make it last for. And then we go back to Classic. What the hell is Midnight? Good question. Midnight is the next retail Warcraft expansion. I appreciate the transparency. Yeah, that's what I've always wanted to be with you guys. They're transparent. People are like, oh my god, I can't believe this guy's just doing stuff for money. Yep. Yep, that's where we are now. That's the life situation we're in. Yeah, other people are like, yes, I also exchange my time and labor for money. It's just so funny. People are like, can't believe you sold out. That's the goal. The ultimate goal is to have something that a massive company goes and says, hey, you know what? We'll give you money for this. You know why? Honestly, because I would rather take a company's money than yours. Like, money's tight for everyone. I get that. If some massive multi-million, multi-billion corporation wants to start giving me a load of cash so I can keep doing this and keep entertaining you, and suddenly you guys can spend your own money on whatever the hell you want, fantastic. Everyone's a winner. I would rather take money from a big company than take it from you. So that's a yes to the Midnight stream then. No, they've not offered enough yet. They reached out and they were like, would you like to play Midnight for this much? I'm like, no. No, I wouldn't. The negotiations are ongoing. I have no interest in playing it at all. Josh's agent is still in negotiations. My agent's just me in a hat. My parents divorced. It was difficult without guidance or role model. It took me a lot of time to learn everything on my own. Negative. I've learned so much in a good way of thinking. I'm glad, Matt. I'm really glad for that. Congratulations getting over that. It's a hard thing to do. But I'm sorry. I am also a child of divorce. And I think I knew that the marriage was on the rocks when my dad bought my mum, for her birthday, Tekken 2 on the PlayStation 1. And I think I knew there were two things that let me know this was wrong. The first was that my mum has never, ever, ever, ever played the PlayStation or showed any interest in playing it whatsoever. The second was her face when she opened it, contrasted with his face when she opened it. And that's when I realized, I think maybe it was a present for him that he had used as a birthday present for her. Now, at the time, all child me was thinking was great. We now own Tekken 2. That sounds fantastic. Adult me is now thinking the marriage was worth one Tekken 2, which, to be fair, is still a pretty high bar. Yeah, you know the whole Homer buying Marge a bowling ball thing? That energy, that kind of energy was happening within the Hayes household. Now, my dad liked Tekken on the PlayStation. In fact, I have a vivid memory of... You guys ever have a PlayStation 2? So, we got a PlayStation 2 a couple of weeks after it launched. And because they were hard to find in the UK. And one of the games that we got for it was Tekken Tag Tournament. And Tekken Tag Tournament was a decent fighting game, but there was a special secret mode if you finished the game. And you could play Tekken Bowling. But you had to, like, complete the game with a couple of characters to do it. But we did not own a memory card. So I vividly remember that my mum and dad would argue over the fact that we had to leave the PS2 on all night if we got close to finishing it, just so in the morning we could finish it again and then do the Tekken Bowling mode, because we couldn't save it. We had to just complete the game in one go. And obviously back then I was like, Mother, you do not understand. The game cannot be saved. Therefore, the effort and time that we are placing into it right now need to be maintained. The console does not have an internal memory capable of remembering our actions. Therefore, it must be left on. Now, I can look back and go, that was probably quite bad for the electricity bill. That was probably quite annoying, seeing as we had one telly, and it was just, like, for 8 hours a day, a static picture of the Tekken Tag Tournament menu screen. I'm like, oh no, now I get why that was so annoying. And, yeah, now my mum's not a massive fan of video games. Like, she doesn't hate them. She just doesn't care for them. Am I excited to play Marathon? Thrilled. Literally thrilled. It took me several days to realize that Marathon and Anthem weren't the same game. That's how excited I am for all of this. I'm very much out of the loop in understanding what video games are when their names don't really tell me what they are. Because Anthem was the thing that was basically the Halo. What was the game, the offshoot of Halo? There was an offshoot of Halo. Was that Anthem? That was Anthem, wasn't it? Because of the movement mechanics and stuff. Destiny, that was it. The offshoot of Halo was Destiny, which I haven't played. Then there was Anthem. Now there's Marathon. And I'm honestly just kind of very much out the loop with trying to remember what all these single words mean. So what's Marathon as a game? If I get it, what am I playing? Will I play Wrath of the Lich King? Hopefully, yes. Excited about that one. I've never played Burning Crusade or Wrath, and I know that people have already hit level 70 and have started to do endgame raids. I'll get to level 70 eventually. So no, I have no real interest in playing Marathon. Unless they pay me. Then I'll be very interested in playing Marathon. Then I'll be marathoned all up in here. Did I play the first Marathon game? No. Am I rolling Druid tomorrow? I don't know what that means. Is that for the midnight launch or something? Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to lie to you and go like, guys, I will never, ever, ever do this. I mean, if someone turns around and goes, hey, we'll give you a lot of money to play a video game, I'm going to go, okay, that sounds great. And then they'll be like, yeah, but you have to like it. I'm like, oh, no, I see what's happened here. You're buying my time. You're not buying my opinion. That's a separate thing. You can have my time, no problem at all. You know, time, totally for sale. Opinion, that's when things get a little bit complicated. You want to pay me to spend my time doing something instead of something I want to do? That's just work. That's okay. That's like any other job. We all sell our time for money. That's how labor works. But what you want to buy is my opinion. That's different. I'm not saying it's not for sale. I'm saying it's much, much more expensive. I'm saying if you want to buy my opinion, you are suddenly asking me to sell my integrity, which means that all of my value as a content creator then goes down, which means that you would need to pay me enough money that I never need to work as a content creator again. That's basically what it is. Like if someone says, hey, we'll pay you X amount of money, you never need to work ever again, you can retire, you can pay off all of your family's debts, and you can live comfortably forever. I'm like, okay, that sounds great. Sounds fantastic. But, this is important, Josh, some people on the internet will dislike you. I'm like, I can live with that. I'm totally okay there. How much would it cost to endorse the raidy, shady monetization system? I would want a percentage of the income. That's what I would want. $100 million to stream Fiesta Online for a year. Right, Yell, you're thinking way too big. All right, way too big. Let's talk real numbers. Like someone says, hey, we'll give you 5 million quid in a year. Okay, that's more money than most people will ever earn in their entire life. Great. I will not only play Fiesta Online for a year for 5 million, I will love it. I will play the meta. I will read the wiki. I'll get involved. I will be the best Fiesta Online player you ever did see. I feel like I'd probably do it for $1 million, but I wouldn't be as into it. I think, like, if it was $1 million, you'd be able to join the stream and tell that I was performing. I think for 5 million, I'd perform well enough that you wouldn't be able to tell. Like, the quality of acting matters too. Ad hoc says, Josh rotates alts like Leonardo DiCaprio rotates girlfriends. I hit level 27 and just decided to give up. You know, that's too much. I've seen all I need to see. Time for a new one. What does 2 million get? 2 million gets you, I'd be excited on the weekends, but annoyed in the week. I've spoken to lots of people who have said they would never, ever, ever sell out their principals for any amount of money. And you know what? Fair play to you. Respect for that. I like that. I was speaking to a guy a few days. Maybe this makes me a bad person, but I think it's more important that I'm honest with you. Sometimes I do talk to people and they say they would never sell out their principles, never sell out their ideas, because they wouldn't want their children to look at them in the future and, you know, not be proud of them. And I thought, okay, that's an interesting way of looking at it. And I get it. As well, you want your friends, your family, you want your kids to look at you and you want to teach them principles, teach them ideas. But let's expand on this. This actually loops back to the question we asked earlier. Would you be hated if it gave your friends and family a better life? Would you be willing to be the lightning rod for hate and ire if you knew you had provided them with the best possible chance at everything? So if someone said to you, hey, you can go through life and your kids will respect you and look up to you and value you, but you will never be able to give them the life that you want to be able to give them. That would suck as a practical thing. But if someone turns around and says, hey, we're going to pay you 10 million quid right now, and we'll put it into a special savings account, and your kids, they will always have the clothes they want. They'll be able to go to the college they want to go to. They'll be able to have a nice car. They'll be able to buy their house off. They'll be able to go on holiday once a year to somewhere nice. And they'll still learn good lessons. They won't be shitty people, They won't be, narcissistic or arrogant. They'll still be good, decent, genuine people. They'll still understand the value of hard work, but they will also then have the privilege to be able to go and do whatever they want to do in life. You're giving them the best possible start. But the trade-off is they will not respect you. They may even hate you. Would you do that? Let's expand this out again, okay? What if your kids loved you and respected you? You had all the money and all the power and all the influence that you needed to give them the life that they wanted and allow them to take on the challenges they want to take on. And if they fail, you can be there as a backup to make sure they never truly suffer too much. But people on the internet you will never meet hate you. What about that? How does that stand out to you? What if you and your friends and your family and your close circle suddenly have the safety and have the security to live the life you want to live, holidays every year to wherever you want to go to, the food you want to eat, the houses you want to live in, the cars you want to drive? We're not talking like excessive billionaire wealth. We're not talking like private jets and helicopters. We're talking a decent, safe car. We're talking a nice house in a nice area. We're talking you can get, a takeout once or twice a week if you want something like that. We're not talking excessive, gratuitous wealth. We're talking comfortable. We're talking comfortable, something that you would probably describe as wealthy. Would you want that life if the cost you had to pay for it was people who used to respect you online say that you have sold out? Because most people would be like, yeah, I would do that. Do other people have to pay the cost of what you do? No, not at all. Not at all. All you're doing is saying things that they don't like. I've got a load of friends that work on OnlyFans, that do adult content work. I've got friends that advertise gambling sites. I've got friends that advertise mobile games. I've got friends that work for the oil industry. And you know what? I don't particularly agree with what they do. And by that, I mean the oil industry. I don't care about the OnlyFans at all. More power to you. Go for it. Oil industry, a little bit dodgy. Okay? Not going to exactly praise the job there. The OnlyFans stuff, the adult content creation stuff, advertising mobile games, go for it. Couldn't care less. But when I said to them, why do you do it? And they said, well, people online don't like me. But my kid gets to go to a private school and they get to have all the food they want and they get to pay their mortgage off and pay their bills off. And I'm like, oh, yeah, you know what? That makes sense. And with gambling, other people do pay the cost for what you do. There is a human cost. It's undeniable that there is a human cost there. And we can disagree with that. That's okay. You can look at me and you can disagree and you could say, I would never be friends with someone that advertises gambling. Okay. What kind of degenerate take is that? Baron, how so? The fact that I don't particularly care that people are doing OnlyFans? Or the fact that I don't particularly care about my friends that work for the oil industry? I mean, I don't like their jobs, but I'm not going to dismiss them as an awful person for it. You cannot condone gambling when you play Magic the Gathering and Path of Exile. I would not be friends with people who cause harm to others for a living. No. I mean, Kath, we then have to really expand that out. Are you vegan? Because you'll be friends with people who aren't. Do you think OnlyFans does not have a human cost? Ledix, I don't work on OnlyFans, I just have friends that do, so I'm not really qualified to say what cost it does or does not have. But what I am saying is that I am not judging my friends who do that as bad people. Because while people online may not wish to respect them, they have secured a solid future for themselves, their families, and their children. And this is where it gets more complicated. I'm not praising the system. I'm not saying that I think it's a good thing that necessarily has huge benefits. I'm saying that I can understand why they have done it to secure the life that they want to have. If in doing that, if in securing that, they incur the ire of people they will never meet, I think they can deal with that. And people often, they use the argument of just wait until this child sees the fact that their parents are online, doing sex work. Okay, I mean, if the child is able to go to a very decent school and have a very decent, quality of life, is that better than the child living in a moldy, damp house, not having enough food? At what point do you say, right, the trade-off is this, and they're going to go for it? Now, I'm not saying there's a right and wrong answer, and this is where the conversation kind of gets more complicated. I will not promote gambling. I won't do it. That's a thing that I want to push back on. I've had gambling companies contact me and say, hey, would you do a gambling stream? No, there is no amount of money that you could pay me to promote gambling because I think that is an inherently wrong thing for me to promote. But would I promote a crappy mobile game if it pays me enough money? Yeah, of course I would. Because I believe that the human cost of that game is not going to be as great as the human cost of promoting gambling to a relatively impressionable audience. Is this why I don't stream Magic the Gathering Arena? No, that's because I don't like the difference between Arena having Arena-only cards. I like Magic the Gathering being one coherent game. For me, the value of Magic the Gathering is in the social experience of sitting down and playing it with people, not necessarily playing the game itself. How do people have so much time to care about others' jobs so much? Gits, you have to understand that on the internet, every day is a big day for the unemployed. Everything is very important. Everything is, oh, this debate is happening between this person, and we have to care about this, and we have to know what this person has done. No, you don't. Most people will go to work, sell their time and their labor for an amount of money, come home, buy the things that make them happy, and pay the money for the things that have to be paid, like bills, like rent, like mortgage, like food, like making sure that your kids have got access to any kind of sports or extracurricular activities they want to have. And when you say to someone, hey, you can give your family a far better life, however, some people online that you will never meet will not think that you're doing the right thing. Most people will not care. And I also think that when you have struggled through more stuff, when you have been in the situations where you have been hungry or you have been homeless, then suddenly you are willing to do quite a lot more in order to secure the fact that your children will not go through that. I've often found that people who have come from a position of privilege find it very easy to say they wouldn't do things. And people that have come from a position of struggle find it much easier to say they would do things because they understand that the struggle is not exactly as romantic as most people think it is. Neither of these people are right or wrong. They are just people making choices. And sometimes you can look at someone and say, I completely disagree with the choice you've made, but I completely understand why you made it. Or the opposite. You can look at someone and say, I completely, I don't understand why you have made this choice at all, but yeah, I would have made the same choice. And that is the complexity of all of this. It's kind of sad you have to degrade yourself because you're out of options. Anepo, at what level is degrading yourself? I mean, most people say that, a lot of people believe that OnlyFans work is degrading. Okay, you can believe that if you want to. Other people that have worked it may think it is, may think it isn't. But at some level, you are still willingly giving your time, your effort, your energy, and your input to a system that says where you have to be and what you have to do. Am I forgetting my own buffs? Yes. Standards are very low, don't make a good life. I don't see it as a failure. It's a system of economics. I completely agree. I absolutely, completely agree. People have said to me, I can't believe you're degrading yourself like that. I'm like, okay, cool. They've said to friends of mine who work in the adult industry, can't believe you're degrading yourself. I'm like, okay, what do you do? Oh, they go to work and sit in an office for 8 hours. I mean, many people would consider that degrading. Whether it is or isn't is an individual choice. I personally don't think it is. If the job is there to be done and you are there to do the job, I think that requires praising. I don't like degrading people for a job that they have. That seems to, strip the humanity away from that person. If a job needs to be done, if a job is there to be done, then be proud of doing it. And you'll often find that the people who say, oh, that's degrading, are the exact people who consume the content that is being created. Yeah, it depends on what it is. Exactly. If someone says, oh, I can't believe you're degrading yourself and you're making $5 million a year, then, okay, maybe that person is totally happy to accept your dislike, knowing that they're putting their family through the best education with the best chance of a future. Maybe they're totally okay doing that, knowing they're doing it for what they see as a greater good. But I am still, personally, not going to advertise gambling at you. And correct me if I'm wrong, but this is the complexity of the decision. There was a large streamer, I think it may have been XQC, but I might be wrong on that, so don't quote me on that specifically. But they revealed their payment from 2 sponsored streams they did. And I believe that they were paid $50,000 to $60,000 to do a sponsored Call of Duty stream for a couple of hours, which is pretty good money. And then they revealed that they were paid, I believe it was $6 million to do a gambling stream for a few days. Now, correct me if I'm wrong on that. I may be misremembering the numbers. I think I read it somewhere. You can Google that, you can check. But it wouldn't surprise me because the numerical difference between the types of content, gaming versus gambling, is absolutely huge. And if someone said to you, hey, we'll pay you £6 million or $6 million, and you have to stream a gambling game for a couple of days, If that money were right in front of you, would you do it? If you are in a position to turn down $6 million because you don't want to do a gambling stream for a few days, I understand. However, ask yourself this. Someone is going to get paid that $6 million. Someone is going to advertise gambling. Las Vegas is still going to exist. Now, I'm not justifying the problem by saying that the problem isn't going to go away. I'm saying that your moral compass of saying no, you wouldn't do it is completely valid, but it's not going to stop the problem. You saying I won't do this is not preventing other people saying they won't do it, which means someone, somewhere, is getting that 6 million quid. Why shouldn't it be you? Because you don't want to look at the money and think of where it came from? And if you imagine this, no, you get to keep it. It's just money they give to you, you keep it. And in the future, in 5, 10 years' time, no one's going to remember that you did that stream. No one's going to remember you did it at all. You might say no right now. And this is what I see happen a lot. This is what I see happen online so much. Someone gets offered a lot of money to do something. They say no. And the online space praises them for it. The online space says, what a good person, what a great person, can't believe you've done that. And they get the social credit of saying no. A couple of weeks later, totally forgotten. Everyone's moved on. You don't get praise for it twice. So we're throwing morals out the window with this conversation. Led, not at all. And I think, unfortunately, by you saying that, you've jumped to the hyperbolic extreme of this. You've said, we are throwing morals out the window. No, we're not. We're not at all. This is all based around the idea of morals. What you're saying is you would not do something because you personally would not want to be, responsible for doing that, which I completely understand. But what if you are not the only person that is involved in this situation? If your family is completely debt-free, if your friends are all really comfortable, then fantastic, I'm really happy for you. But if someone said to you, you get to do this, and in doing so, you will be able to pull your family all out of debt, okay, great. Are you willing to take the damage? Are you willing to do the damage to the rest of society if in doing so you help those closest to you? And yeah, absolutely, when the topic comes back up, it will be re-remembered. So what you're saying is it's fine to damage others as long as it benefits you, is what you're saying. No, Lord Zoom, I'm not saying that at all. And the fact that you have reduced it to that shows you don't understand the complexities of the conversation. I'm saying that if you are going to be involved in these kind of discussions, that is something that you need to approach and understand. What I really hate about these online discussions is when I say, hey, we should think about the moral complexities of these kind of discussions. And someone says to me, okay, so what you're saying is this extreme example is true. No. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that if you were actually realistically, physically presented with this choice, you need to weigh up these sides. And it's very easy to say no to a hypothetical. Have you guys been surprised by how many people in the chat have started saying, okay, so what you're saying is, and then using an extreme example? Also, when you say, okay, so what you're saying is the people closest to you matter more than others further away suffering from you, if you purchase cheaply made clothes, then what you're saying is, yes, actually, you do agree with that. However, you don't need to face the consequences of that because it's happening far away. Now, I'm not casting any kind of moral judgment on you. I buy clothes at Primark all the time. I absolutely understand that my actions are going to have inherent consequences for people far away that I will never meet. By engaging within that system, I am continuing and even supporting a system that has a level of exploitation. But the reason that people don't care about this is because, this is very simple, you don't see it. You don't see it. If you are asked if you want to engage within a system that punishes people and harms people that you have to see, people are normally against it. If you say, do you want to engage in a system and it will damage people, but you will never see them and never interact with them, sometimes people are much more okay. We've lost the Primark sponsorship, lads. You find it incredibly rich when someone grandstands about workers' rights with an iPhone in hand. Well, Zaffel, I agree with you in principle. However, do you believe that they would only be able to grandstand about workers' rights if they were not engaging in any of the systems that exploit people at all? And if they do that, and again, I'm not arguing with you here, I'm asking for a kind of philosophical discussion. If they were to only engage with systems that did not exploit people in any way, they would not be able to get their message, which may have a grander kind of scale input, out to the rest of the world. Is it worth sacrificing market reach if you know in your own heart that you are then doing the right thing? And the reason I bring this up is because I read a book many years ago called The Moneyless Man. I think it's a decent book. I think you should give it a read. Moneyless Man, fantastic book. Basically, a guy decided to go off grid and see how long he could live with no money, just trading everything. And one of his kind of moral quandaries at the start of this adventure was, does he use a laptop in order to chronicle his journey? Because in using a laptop, he is then not going fully off grid, but he will be able to then expand his reach. He'll be able to expand his market value. He'll be able to contact people and actually say, hey, this is what I'm doing, which may inspire more people. The reason being proposed, as long as we know someone is doing this, it's okay for us to disregard our own morals. No, it's not okay, Zoom. You're reducing this down quite a lot. It's not okay to disregard your own morals. It's a question that you must ask if you can live with. Many of us do things that we do not think are okay every day, but we do them because we wish to live with them. So this moneyless man argument was, he is a hypocrite if he uses the laptop. However, using the laptop is the only way that he's going to be able to get enough people to hear his message. He will be expanding the reach of his message, but in doing so, harming it. So what is more valuable? To follow your message super clearly, but in doing so, reduce the number of people that get to hear it? Or following your message as well as you can, but taking sacrifices within your own personal choices in order to make sure more people are exposed to it? And there is no right answer. Only you can know where you sit within that spectrum. That's like saying we should start a business to do unethical stuff and then make a charity to help people. Habibi, that's not a stupid thing to add at all. That's a philosophical paradox. That's not stupid. That's a really interesting thing to look at. Would you start an unethical business that makes millions and millions and millions of pounds and then invest that into food banks, knowing that if you didn't do that, the food banks wouldn't get the money? Did I say Habibi? It's the chatter's name. Companies do that. Sell fatty food, then fund weight loss drugs. Yeah, I completely understand. And I agree. It's the idea of this complexity. It is a level of complexity. It's not ethical selling fatty food and then weight loss drugs because you know you're causing the problem. So what we were talking about specifically was doing what many people consider to be an unethical business model, but within doing that, actually providing a more ethical system overall. So would it be okay to take money to do a sponsored gambling stream and then spend that money funding free educational programs? Because the educational programs aren't going to get funded anyway. What's the correct answer to that? And the answer is there is no correct answer. It is only what you personally believe is right and wrong. Why did you get a leaflet through the door saying that I own Europe now? Well, that shows that my bribes have gone to the right place. I think a lot of people like things to be right and wrong. Oh, the old rabbi story. That is very true. That is very, very true. Red Sky, I love that rabbi story. I'll tell it as best I can. The world is full of grey, without a doubt. Consider this. Imagine that a rich businessman who has made his money through exploitative practices goes to, I believe the original story had the religious leader being a rabbi. I don't think it necessarily matters which kind of religious leader it is. That's just how the story went. And he says to the rabbi, I'm going to fund an orphanage. I'm going to provide the best food, the best beds. I'm going to use the money that I have made in my unethical business decisions to fund an orphanage. And the rabbi says, go away, think about this, and come back when you've decided you definitely want to do it. And the businessman comes back a few days later and says, Rabbi, I have realized that I was funding the orphanage for the wrong reasons. I was not funding it because I believed in it. I was funding it to make myself feel better about my previous decisions. I was doing it to assuage the guilt that I have felt for the choices I have made. I was doing it for selfish reasons. And the rabbi responded, do you think the kids will care where the money came from? Let's imagine that you, as a child, were supported by various programs, such as free school dinners or free aftercare for, you know, the school, which aftercare was if your parents couldn't pick you up on time, you could just kind of chill in a club after school. Because I was supported by those. I had free school dinners when I was a kid. I stayed in the aftercare club. If I'd have known as a kid that the money that supported the thing that was supporting me had come from an unethical source, do you think I would have turned around and said, well, now I'm not doing it? No. I would have taken advantage of the system that was there to support me. Because to me at that time, the thing that was supporting me was more important than where the money to make it came from. So when people say they would not do unethical things, even if they could then spend the money on the ethical thing afterwards, I understand that you are placing your own morals above, you know, making immoral choices. And that is respectable. But what about the people that you could help? Would they look at you and go, yeah, it's the right thing to do to place your own morals above the other things, even though you could help me? No, they're going to want to help you. I'm reducing the ideology. This is after the fact. But if you engage with something unethical to exchange it for something else, that practice is in itself harmful overall. If you've already done bad, it's completely different. It depends on the extreme exchange. I mean, while you cannot quantify ethics, while we can't reduce them to a single number, if you could do something that was 1% bad that had 99% help, is that worth doing? If you could do something that's, you know, 51% good but 49% bad, would you do that? And then, would you do something that was wrong if you were the only person that suffered from it? Knowing that we're all going to be dead one day, is it worth taking that hatred onto yourself? Why are you the one that makes the decision of who receives harm so someone else receives good? Cat, that's another good point. We're getting into philosophy now. We're getting into theology, combining with philosophy. These are questions that philosophers have debated for centuries. The answer is we don't know. We straight up do not know. You recently finished Clair Obscur, and the ending, yes, what a great game. What a phenomenal game. Anyone that tells you there is a right and wrong ending of Clair Obscur does not understand the complexity of it. We can summon Philosophy Tube and have these discussions. What I very much dislike is when someone hears an answer and goes, well, there's an objectively correct way of doing this. Because I guarantee, if you think there is an objectively correct answer, then there will be someone else who thinks that the opposite is objectively correct, and neither of you will then be willing to talk to each other. It is very difficult to occasionally look and say, you know what, you were right. But not with your methods and not with your ideal, with one or the other. This is why one of my favorite action films is the film The Rock. You guys seen the film The Rock? Sean Connery, Nicolas Cage? I think the bad guy in the film The Rock is justified. I straight up think that he's not right, but he's totally justified in what he's doing. I don't think his actions are, you know, morally correct, but I think that what he's trying to achieve from them is right. Yeah, the one with the green poison balls. Yeah, he's basically trying to get aftercare for soldiers that were then forgotten by the government. That's his whole thing. And the fact that he was threatening, and he was saying, hey, we will do this, or this bad thing will happen, but actually, you know, you've seen the film. Go watch the film. And this whole conversation started from the idea of, would you take money to promote something unethical if you knew by doing that you would be able to put more good out into the world? No one truly knows. Someone's healing me. Thank you very much. That is kind of you. You can be buffed. Can't buff you right now, but I'll buff you later. Anyone that says this is 100% right or wrong, there is always a little shade of grey to discuss and to consider with it. If the unethical thing harms even one person, you would say it's not worth it. Even one person, says Quicksilver. That's a very extreme bar. If the unethical thing harms one person, you would say it's not worth it. Okay, if that's where your personal moral line sits, that's totally acceptable. It's your own moral line. But I think that the world already operates on far less extremes than that. I would say that if we're going to go that distance, imagine an older gentleman taking a manual labor job, moving heavy boxes around, knowing that every day was harming their health, damaging their back, breaking their joints, potentially over the long term. But in doing so, they were providing for their family. Is that an acceptable balance of harming one person to help others? Well, you could say it's their choice to go and be employed. You could say it's their choice to do that. But if their choice is harm themselves through work they can do or not, harm itself is a spectrum too. Absolutely. And this is where we get into the old, does the end justify the means question. That, anyone that says there's a definite answer to that is wrong. We don't know. You can chat about it. That's the thing. You don't give away agency if it's yourself. You're not deciding to harm others. But what if you're the manager? What if you are the manager of that specific warehouse and you are told by your bosses that you need to complete X amount of warehouse work within a day, otherwise you're going to be fired. And you know that you being fired means that your family doesn't eat. You're then responsible for calling in, specific people to get the work done. And you know that you could call in that old guy and the work would get done. But then you're harming him more. You're taking time away from him and his family. Now, it's not necessarily illegal what you're doing, but many people could consider it immoral. Every action we take involves, other people in some way. And that's the complexity of it. That's, in a weird way, the beauty of it. Do I think WoW Classic has the potential to dwarf retail's popularity? No. No, simply because retail is more popular. People in this stream obviously like Classic, people in the guild play Classic, but retail is ultimately more popular. It just is. I think WoW Classic will still be a niche within a niche because the MMORPG genre itself is a niche. It will remain a niche within a niche for a long time. It will still have its hardcore supporters, it will have people that enjoy it, people that like it, people that kind of hang around with it, but it will still remain a niche within a niche. What is my stance on do the ends justify the means? Depends how much benefit the ends would have and how much damage the means would do. There is no definite answer on that. If the ends are, a 1% increase in quality of life for everyone, but the means are hundreds of thousands or millions of people have to suffer for it, maybe not. There's no way that you can answer that unless you know what the ends and what the means are. Can I give you a Draenei dance? Maybe later on. Give you a little treat. But this kind of philosophical discussion is only possible when you can... This is... when someone says it's okay to disagree? We can agree to disagree. When someone says that, what they often mean is we have had this hypothetical philosophical discussion of where we believe our own personal limits are and what we believe the human condition truly is, but we don't necessarily see eye to eye on the depth and the complexity of it. That's okay. That's where it's totally okay to disagree. It's not okay to say agree to disagree when you're talking about just devaluing humans in general. When you're talking about just, reducing the humanity or removing that aspect from someone. That's not okay to disagree with. So we can agree to disagree when we're talking about philosophical hypotheticals. I wouldn't say we can agree to disagree when you think that, a certain group of people just deserve to die. I'm like, well... Let's have a bit more complexity with this. Come on. Would I be okay with nuking the UK if the rest of the world had a significant increase in quality of life? That's an interesting question, because we also have to accept and we have to understand that our views on morality and philosophy as humans often change quite substantially when our own friends and family become involved. Anyone that says they don't, I think needs to examine the connection they have to their friends and family. If someone says, hey, you can press this button and someone you've never met will die, but you get 10 million quid, a lot of people would consider pressing that button. But if you say, hey, you can press this and get 10 million quid, but someone that's near and dear to you will die, people would hesitate more. And people that are going, yeah, no, not ever. You might not. But what I need you to do is expand your thinking to include the general population. Whenever I say, hey, would you harm someone for monetary gain? People in the chat go, no, not at all, never, that would never happen. Okay, I'm glad that you are stable enough in your morals to know that you wouldn't do that. Well done. Arksoff, you don't need to convince me that you wouldn't. This is not a moral failing on your part to consider it. But you need to accept that there are people in the world who will consider it. And if someone turns around and says to you, yeah, I consider that, that does not necessarily make them a morally inferior person. It just means they are willing to consider. And we have had many interesting stories and tales and legends and myths of people who are considering things. And whenever I bring up these moral hypotheticals and people get quite upset that I think they would consider it, okay, great. I'm glad you have got that kind of solid core of moral character that you will not stray from. Excellent. But I really think most people, more people than you think, would consider it. But what we have to do now, what we have to accept is when you bring in your own friends and family, when suddenly this decision involves people you do know, then it's different. Then it straight up gets very different. And if you don't think it gets different, for you, brilliant. I'm glad you consider every human being on Earth a member of your family. That is a beautiful thing to be able to do. Not mocking you, genuinely, that's quite nice. But think of Barry down the pub. If you say to Barry down the pub, who, you know, doesn't really think about things too deeply, press this button, someone you never meet, never will meet, never know, and has no impact on your life whatsoever will die and will give you 10 million quid. Barry would press it. You say to Barry, hey, press the same button and your sister dies. Then he's going to reconsider it. Then he's going to think. Suddenly, the fact of, you know, direct connection, the fact of familiar or friendly connection, that changes the decision. For most people, it would. In fact, there is a really, I can't remember the name of the film, but there is a really interesting film with this exact button premise. It's not a super high budget film, but it's a good film to think about. If you can find the title of the film, please let me know. There is a film where a weird gentleman in a suit approaches people with a button and says, if you press the button, someone you do not know will die, but we will give you, it's either 1 million or 5 million. It might just be called The Button. 1 million or 5 million or 10 million, whatever it is. And someone presses it. But then they discover the truth. The person that dies is the last person who pressed the button. So when they press it and they get their money and the person with the box then moves off to ask someone else, if they press the button, they are then the next target. And I like that. I think that's a really interesting way of looking at it, because you're then adding a level of personal connection to the choice. You're then seeing that it affects you. That's quite a nice twist with that. Suddenly, it's not a person you've never met. You are then relying on a person you've never met to be nice to you. You're saying, hey, I will take the life of a person that I've never met for personal gain, but then I have to rely on the fact that somebody else wouldn't. That's a moral quandary right there. That's a good bit of writing. Love that. That's dumb. Nobody would press it. Tef, you don't know that that's how it works until after you've pressed it, though. That's the point of the story. You don't know that the person that presses it next, the target will be you because they don't know you. Am I baiting viewers to farm engagement? Turkey, I'm just having a conversation. to quote the quote that we all hate, I'm just asking questions. Hate that line because it's often used to cover up for the fact that no, you're trying to bait people and you're doing shitty things in an attempt to get reactions. Yeah, that's a great question. Once you've worked customer service, once you've worked any kind of retail job, once you've worked any kind of hospitality job, I think you very quickly lose faith in a lot of people. It's very nice to think that people are great when you haven't met that many people. The more people you meet, the more you realize that they're nowhere near as... The average is a lot lower than you think it is. Just consider that. Would you still love me if I was a worm? Just asking questions. Inside you, there are 2 wolves. One of them is a worm. The other one has been asked the question that inside them are 2 wolves. It's wolves all the way down, guys. I think working in customer service does tell you that lots of people are normal, but there is a much higher percentage than you would like who are very, very, very abnormal and are remarkably selfish.